Hey guys! Okay, so it's hot, right? Like really hot. I'm talking melting makeup, can't stop sweating hot. And it just makes me think, how did people even function before air conditioning? Like, were they just constantly dripping in sweat? It is honestly kind of hard to imagine. So I decided to do some digging and found out that people were actually pretty smart about staying cool back in the day. Today, the majority of households and public buildings have air conditioning. It is hard to imagine life without the respite that artificially cooled spaces provide on a hot, humid day. This video is going to be a journey back in time to explore some seriously cool, pun intended, and surprisingly effective ways people beat the heat before AC. Get ready to be amazed. Now let's talk about an ingenious method people used to stay cool. Water fountains. You see, before the age of air conditioning, many cities around the world turned to water as a natural coolant. Public fountains were not just decorative, they served a practical purpose by providing residents with a refreshing way to cool off during the scorching summer months. Take ancient Rome, for example. The Romans were masters of engineering, and they built extensive aqueduct systems to bring fresh water into the city. Public fountains, or nasoni, were strategically placed throughout Rome, allowing citizens to drink and splash water on themselves to beat the heat. These fountains became social hubs where people gathered to chat and relax, making them an integral part of daily life. Moving to the Middle East, we find the stunning city of Isfahan in Iran. During the Safavid era, the city was adorned with numerous public fountains and pools, known as haws. These water features were often found in the courtyards of mosques, palaces, and gardens. The sound of flowing water not only provided a cooling effect but also created a serene atmosphere, making the heat more bearable. In Europe, the city of Paris is another excellent example. During the 19th century, Baron Haussmann's renovation of Paris included the installation of numerous public fountains. These fountains, known as fontaines Wallace, were designed to provide clean drinking water to the public while also serving as a place to cool off. They quickly became iconic landmarks and are still in use today. Even in the United States, cities like New York and San Francisco installed public drinking fountains in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These fountains were part of a public health initiative to provide clean water and a means to cool down during hot summer days. So, whether it was the grandeur of Rome's aqueducts, the tranquility of Isfahan's haws, or the charm of Paris's fontaines Wallace, water fountains have played a crucial role in helping people stay cool throughout history. And who knows, maybe we could learn a thing or two from these ancient methods to make our modern cities a bit more refreshing. Alright, now that we have explored the cooling power of water fountains, let's move on to another fascinating method people used to stay cool. Ready to dive deeper? Let's go. Alright, so before we dive deeper into the ancient methods, let's talk about something that has been around since time immemorial and is still pretty popular today. Handheld fans. Yep, those simple, elegant little devices that you can just whip out anytime you are feeling the heat. I mean, who has not seen those beautifully decorated fans in historical dramas, right? Turns out, handheld fans have a pretty fascinating history. They were not just practical tools for staying cool, but also symbols of status and fashion. For instance, in ancient China, fans were made from materials like silk, feathers, and bamboo. They were often intricately decorated with paintings and calligraphy, making them not just functional but also a form of art. Emperors and nobles would have elaborately designed fans that reflected their wealth and status. And it was not just China. In Japan, folding fans, or sensu, were used in ceremonies, dances, and even martial arts. They were considered so important that they became part of traditional attire and were often given as gifts during significant events. Moving west, in Europe during the Renaissance, fans became a must-have accessory for the upper class. They were made from materials like ivory, tortoiseshell, and lace, and often featured elaborate designs and even hidden compartments. Ladies would use them not only to keep cool, but also to communicate subtly through a sort of fan language. So, whether it was for practical cooling, social signaling, or artistic expression, handheld fans have been a fantastic solution for beating the heat throughout history. And the best part? They do not require any electricity, making them a pretty eco-friendly option even by today's standards. Maybe it is time to bring back the fan as a stylish, sustainable way to stay cool, don't you think? Alright, now let's get back to our ancient methods of staying chill. Ready to travel back in time? Let's go. Alright, first up, we are going way back to ancient Egypt. You know, pyramids, pharaohs, the whole shebang. Turns out these guys were like the OGs of staying cool. They lived in the desert, so they had to figure out how to handle the scorching heat. And honestly, their method was kind of genius. They would take these reeds like tall grasses and soak them in water, then they would hang them in their windows. Okay, so picture this. A breeze rolls in, hits these wet reeds, and boom, instant coolness. It is like a super primitive swamp cooler. I do not know about you guys, but I am kind of impressed. Like, they did not have fancy technology or anything, but they used what they had and made it work. That is some serious ingenuity right there. And it was not just about comfort either. Keeping cool was super important for the Egyptians because they believed that staying cool helped preserve the body. They thought that heat messed with the body's natural balance, so they were all about finding ways to stay chill. I mean, it makes sense, right? When you are hot, you feel gross, tired, and just not your best. So the Egyptians were onto something with their whole staying cool obsession. It just blows my mind to think about how people thousands of years ago were figuring out ways to hack the heat. Like, they were basically the original life hackers. And honestly, I am kind of inspired. Maybe I should try making my own reed cooler. What do you guys think? Okay, let's fast forward a bit to ancient Rome. Now, you guys know the Romans were all about luxury, right? They had these incredible bathhouses, elaborate feasts, and of course their famous aqueducts. But here's the thing about those aqueducts. They were not just for supplying drinking water. Nope, the Romans were way too clever for that. They actually used them to cool their homes. I know, right? Mind blown. So basically, they would circulate the aqueduct water through the walls of their houses. It was like an early version of central air, except way more eco-friendly, and honestly, pretty genius. Can you imagine having cool water flowing through your walls on a sweltering summer day? That is the kind of luxury I can get behind. But the Romans did not stop there. They also built these elaborate public fountains that sprayed cool water into the air. It was like a giant misting system for the whole city. Imagine strolling through Rome on a hot day and feeling the cool mist on your face. Talk about refreshing. It is no wonder the Romans were able to build such a vast empire. They knew how to stay cool under pressure, literally. So yeah, the Romans were definitely onto something with their whole water cooling system. It is just another example of how people figured out how to beat the heat way before air conditioning came along. And it makes you realize that maybe we do not need all the fancy technology to stay comfortable. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Alright, let's travel to ancient Persia, which is modern-day Iran. Now, Persia was known for its scorching hot summers. Like, we are talking seriously intense heat. But the Persians were smart cookies. They found a way to chill out, literally. They built these massive public pools. And I'm not talking about your average backyard pool. These were like Olympic-sized swimming pools, but way more beautiful. These pools were not just about swimming laps, though. They were designed for people to hang out, socialize, and escape the heat. Imagine a giant, ornate pool surrounded by lush gardens and shaded areas. People would gather there to chat, relax, and cool off from the scorching sun. It sounds like a dream, right? And get this, the Persians even had these intricate systems to keep the water cool and refreshing. They used wind catchers, which are these tall towers that catch the breeze and direct it down into the pool. It is like a natural air conditioning system for the water. Like, how smart is that? So, the Persians basically invented the pool party, and they did it centuries ago. It just goes to show that people have always found ways to come together and beat the heat. And honestly, I think we could all learn a thing or two from the Persians about how to chill out in style. Okay, let's journey to ancient China, where things get really interesting. You guys, the Chinese invented the rotary fan way back in the 2nd century. That's right, they were fanning themselves in style centuries before electricity even existed. And these were not just your average handheld fans, these were massive, rotating fans powered by, get this, humans or animals. Picture this, a giant fan with 7 wheels, each one taller than a person, slowly rotating and creating a gentle breeze. It is like a human-powered air conditioner. These fans were used in palaces, temples, and even wealthy homes. They were a status symbol, a sign that you were living the good life. But the rotary fan was not just about luxury, it was also about practicality. The Chinese used these fans for all sorts of things, like ventilating mines, cooling down workshops, and even drying crops. It was like a multi-purpose tool for staying cool and getting things done. So, the Chinese were way ahead of the game when it came to fan technology. They understood the power of a good breeze, and they found a way to create it using their ingenuity and resources. It makes you realize that sometimes the simplest inventions can have the biggest impact. Now let's take a look at how people kept cool through their clothing and living spaces. Unlike today, where we enjoy climate-controlled environments and can wear much of our modern wardrobe year-round, our ancestors had to be more strategic about their attire. Just a few decades ago, there was a clear distinction between summer and winter wardrobes. In the winter, people bundled up in heavy woolen garments to stay warm. But come summer, they switched to lighter fabrics like linen or cotton to help beat the heat. For the wealthier folks, staying cool was a bit easier. They often had houses with cellars, which provided a naturally cooler environment to escape the summer heat. Even more luxurious, affluent families could retreat to their summer homes by the shore or in the mountains, enjoying a refreshing change of scenery and temperature. But what about those who stayed in the city? When it became unbearably hot inside, people would relocate to outdoor living spaces, as well as the aforementioned water fountains. Porches, whether at the front or back of the house, were almost universal in design. These spaces not only provided shade, but also served as social hubs where friends and family could gather, chat, and relax in the cooler evening air. And here is an interesting architectural tidbit. Have you ever noticed how older homes and buildings often have high ceilings? This was no accident. Because hot air rises, these structures were designed with windows near the ceiling to allow the hot air to escape, creating a natural airflow that helped keep the living spaces cooler. Before the invention of air conditioning, buildings frequently had awnings over nearly every window. Going back to antiquity, awnings provided the shade vital for keeping the sun's heat at bay. So, from lightweight fabrics to cleverly designed homes, our ancestors had some pretty innovative ways to stay cool long before the advent of modern air conditioning. Okay, fast forward to 19th century America. Now, before refrigerators were a thing, people had to get creative about keeping their food cold, especially during those scorching summer months. And their solution was, well, ice. But not just any ice, they harvested it from frozen lakes and rivers during the winter. Imagine this, teams of workers out on a frozen lake cutting massive blocks of ice with saws and hauling them off in horse-drawn carts. It was a huge operation, but it was the only way to get ice during the summer. These ice blocks were then stored in giant ice houses, which were basically insulated warehouses designed to keep the ice from melting. And it was not just about keeping food cold. People used ice for all sorts of things like making ice cream, cooling drinks, and even treating injuries. It was like the Swiss Army knife of 19th century life. Can you imagine life without a refrigerator? Like, how did they even function? So yeah, the 19th century Americans were serious about their ice. They knew that it was the key to staying cool and comfortable during the summer. And it just goes to show that people have always found ways to adapt and make do with what they have. Okay, so, I don't know about you guys, but I am feeling a little bit more grateful for my AC right now. Like, can you imagine having to harvest ice from a frozen lake just to keep your food cold? That's intense. But it is also kind of inspiring, you know? People back then were so resourceful and resilient. They did not have all the fancy technology we have today, but they figured out how to stay cool and comfortable using their ingenuity and the resources they had. It just goes to show that maybe we do not need all the bells and whistles to live a good life. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Anyway, that is all from me today. Stay cool, my friends.
Thank you for watching. Hope you found this video informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. We do like to know and hear your feedback. And if you have the means, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get early access to our videos, and where we post bonus material. Till next time, this is Geeky Tidbits saying cheers and have a good day.